All right.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
This is really funny. We have kind of cameras all the way around
That's
so that we can live stream everywhere. If you're a music kid, it's like William Onion Bar with like keyboards like on all sides of you.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Yay!
It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you again. I wish we did this more than once a month, although when I look at how much it takes us to kind of get ourselves going,
It like totally
we would
would
never do it if we did it more than once a month.
It's like my favorite thing to do with you, though. I mean, we have conversations all the time, but I love just getting to sit and use like all of our filters to kind of process these questions about intimacy.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear your questions. Today's topic, Mojo and I decided, is going to be about rekindling desire, resurrecting sex after there's been a betrayal. Obviously, what we're talking about is after you've done some of the repair work, post-betrayal, and your relationship feels ready to get sexual, get sensual again, you know, what are some of the challenges, and also what are some tips and tricks to do?
I think if we talk about Gottman, that would be like a cool way to kind of outline it. But first, I just want to kind of normalize that like maybe desire like post-betrayal for you actually went up, and that's also normal and okay. A lot of people have like guilt or confused feelings for a kind of like increase in desire that might happen like before they even find out about a betrayal or right after. Mm-hmm. And so there can be some weird feelings about that. But it's really, really normal.
Yeah, exactly. It's also perfectly normal to sort of lose desire or to feel like you don't want to have sex for a long time. You know, people can really be lots of different places with this.
Yeah, it's best to just, one size fits all, throw that out the window, because everyone responds to this most painful kind of human experience with a really wide range of behavior.
And I would say all betrayal affects a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't have to be a
Talk
sexual
more about
betrayal.
that. Yeah, it doesn't have to be an affair.
It doesn't, you know, losing trust in a relationship. If you have, for example, a relationship where one partner is in control of the money all the time and is the only one that decides what you're going to spend money on and how, then that also is losing trust, right? And when you lose trust, it has this isomorphic effect where you're losing trust over here, but it impacts all these other things. So think of it as sort of this trickle-down effect. So any kind of betrayal can affect the sex life, right, or the sexual relationship, but having a sexual affair is going to be one of the most challenging types of betrayals that affects sexual attitudes, values, and the ability to resurrect sex.
Yeah, and like impacts the timetable and kind of what we can expect in terms of how long it will take for things to kind of settle back towards being normal feeling in the relationship.
Right.
I think one important thing for people to really kind of step back and realize is that trust recovery is kind of a 3-phase thing. In EFT and in Gottman, you see a kind of 3 distinct kind of phases, and in models that are evidence-based and outcome-based, like the models I just mentioned. And so the first phase, which with most of my clients can be like 6 months, it can last a long time, and that's atonement in Gottman's language, or kind of like de-escalating things, figuring out what people need in order to feel like they can move on from this.
And telling the story of the affair or the betrayal, right?
Knowing the
Being
beginning,
able
middle,
to
and
say,
end.
okay, if we're going to work on this relationship, we need to have transparency. So the person who feels hurt by the betrayal gets to ask questions, gets to say, what really happened back there? What were you doing?
Yeah.
How did you come to be doing that? What led you down this path? Again, we're talking betrayal in a broad sense, right? If there's been an extra relationship affair, then one of the questions or what a piece of the work that we do is, you know, how did you meet this person? Why didn't you tell me? You know, why did you decide to keep it a secret? Why are you having a relationship out here in a relationship with me? What was that like? I think Esther Perel has some questions that I really like, where she says, go from being sort of a private investigator to being a explorator, was
like a meaning maker.
Like a meaning maker. I'm trying to think, who are the people that explore? An explorer.
One who explores.
One who explores. So become an explorer rather than an investigator. An investigator is trying to nail the partner and figure out ways to catch them at a lie. An explorer is saying, what was that like?
What
for
was
you?
really going on here? Yeah. Understanding as the goal.
Exactly. And, what were you missing in our relationship that you got in this other relationship? And what it does is it allows you to gather information about what do we need to bring online in our primary relationship.
If this is going to be sustainable.
And
it's also a phase where I invite the involved partner, the person who broke the relationship norms, they might normally be called the cheating partner, to kind of slow themselves down and really check expectations, because it's not really fair. Like, what has to happen in phase 1 is stabilizing the relationship, helping the hurt partner get trust built back in safety so that we can do the heavy lifting, so they can even hear what the involved partner's story is. Because it's valid. A lot of times the person who went outside the relationship without permission was carrying more of an emotional burden, whatever the case may be. They, however, decided to break the rules and the norms of their relationship. And so if they discern that they want to stay in the relationship, phase 1 is all about like undoing that expectation that they have helped create in their partner's nervous system and brain that it's going to happen again.
Right.
And so it's not necessarily the time where you're like, ooh, I should be getting all the sex in the world. It's unfair if you were the one carrying the emotional burden that phase 1 is about the other partner, but it kind of has to be. It's sort of like when we're working with clients with disordered eating, like, if I have someone who just is like below 8 pounds, they have to get their body weight up enough to even be able to like do the emotional heavy lifting and counseling work, because there's not enough lipids in their brain to even process. So I really have to, because a lot of involved partners are like, that's how I connect. Sex is what I need. And they have a partner who's just, safety's gone. So they can't really expect that at that point in the relationship. So it's a lot of balancing and checking of expectations in that phase 1 of atonement.
Right. I tell people long-term committed relationships face a lot of challenges, but there's no challenge that is more challenging than to have your partner betray you, lie to you, keep things from you, to look you in the face and say, no, I don't care about anybody else, while they're also telling somebody else, I love you and I can't be without you. So when that hurt spouse or partner finds out, oh, you've been lying to me, that can really do a huge number on their ability to feel desire. Desire comes from safety, but it also comes from interest. We talk about these command systems in our brain. There are like 7 or 8 command systems. And think of it as everything that you experience emotionally. Let's say it's fear. You don't just feel fear. You feel fear and a bunch of things happens in your body, and your brain remembers other times you've been afraid. And your brain sort of prepares for certain action based on what you've done before. Or if you know karate, your brain is preparing for the karate move, right? But I don't know karate, so my brain's not going to prepare for the karate move. And so it's like you have a fear command system. The same thing is true for desire and sensuality. There's a sensual command system. And that command system has all of your history, all of your interests, all of your stirrings, longings. And so all that kind of gets shut down when you find out that this person that you put a lot of safety and trust in has been betraying you, has been lying to you. And people will often say the sex that they had with the other person wasn't nearly as damaging as all of the lies. That really makes me feel like I can't be safe in this relationship with you.
It's an attachment wound at its core. And also it goes to body image stuff and people's kind of own sense of self, because I haven't had an experience with a client that was a hurt partner who didn't do that kind of comparison trap with the affair partner. What did they have that I don't have? Or, comparing bodies, especially like I have a lot of female clients in their 40s, 50s who the affair partner was maybe like in her early 20s. And so it can be like an earth-shattering, devastating, like rock to your self-confidence and your body image. So I think in phase 1, atonement is also kind of like atonement with yourself. Like how did I miss this if you didn't find out, or things like that. And also, again, unwiring that brain expectation, because if you were a partner who found out, like you had a suspicion and then you found out, which is more and more common because of social media and the cloud and linked computers, then your brain gets a huge reward. And so that's something I normalize for partners too. It's like, this person's brain is like primed and ready. It was suspicious, which is like that. It was protective that it was doing that kind of detective sleuthy thing. It found out a truth that you were lying about. So now its radar is up and looking for anything to be. That's a question I hear from a lot of partners, is like, what else is not true?
Exactly.
You kind of like go back through the relationship and wonder, like, what else?
Well, you
was
feel
a lie?
like going back and rewriting all of your history back to the very beginning, because basically it's also another safety mechanism. Your body says, or your brain says, I need to go back and review every single thing that's happened in our relationship and decide, was that sincere? Not only were you lying to me, but were you sincere? Did you mean it when you said you loved me 20 years ago, when in fact you didn't love me all that much because you were quite prepared 10 years ago to go say that to somebody else?
Yeah, it's highly existential too, because at the root of that question is like, you know me. You know that I would be devastated if you did something like this in the context of our relationship. But I hear that again, that just, how could you? How could you? And so in phase one, you'll waste time if you're trying to just like answer those really existential questions. So that's why I invite the hurt partner to kind of slow your roll. Julie Gottman says, like, don't ask those questions when you're least able to handle them, especially of the sexual nature that can add to the trauma. So it's more about finding stability and balance and prepping yourself for kind of the stage 2 work that's coming.
That's right. And again, it's very important to go from the investigative role.
Yeah.
The investigative role is, who did you do it with, when, how many times, what were you wearing, what was she wearing, what were the two of you saying to each other? And that's the kind of stuff that can re-traumatize you. Once you hear certain phrases, or you get certain images, or heaven forbid you actually have video evidence of something, it's going to really kind of become a loop in your head, and that loop becomes like a trauma loop. It's an incomplete biological loop is what it is. So that's why it gets stuck. It's sort of like a tune that gets stuck in your head. The reason it gets stuck in your head is because you only remember a small phrase of it. So if you ever have a tune that's stuck in your head, just go listen to the whole song and it'll go away.
Yeah, it's the Zygarnik effect.
Exactly.
Things that are unfinished are like the first thing that your brain is going to go to. But think about it. That's like to keep us safe. Things that are unfinished, you need to go back and attend to so that you don't die or whatever.
Which is why a hurt partner can ask over and over and over again for pieces of information, because their brain is trying to finish the loop. And so the involved partner, and maybe we should say something about why are we calling them involved partners. And here's my spiel about that. For the longest time, we've thought about betrayal, particularly a sexual betrayal, as infidelity, right? And infidelity has in it the word infidel. And
a whole history.
And a whole history around that. And so what happens is one person went down this path, and for sure, they made choices multiple times to betray the primary relationship and lie and deceive and all this stuff. But they went down this path, and the other person, the hurt spouse, gets to say, you're an infidel, which means you should wear a red letter L and walk around and be flogged by the whole village for the rest of your life.
But maybe they just didn't have access to someone to go outside the relationship with. Like maybe they just, it's sort of like the milkman trope, They just didn't have anybody, and so it doesn't make them morally superior or ethically better.
But, that is a hard one to convince people of.
Oh, yeah.
Because what they're likely to believe is you're the infidel, you're the cheater, you're the deceiver. And now that sounds like a diagnostic label. Once a cheater, always a cheater. So your brain starts to say, oh, once a cheater, always a cheater. So I'm just waiting for the next, the axe to fall, for the next shoe to drop, right? And so then that's going to damage your ability to resurrect desire.
Yeah, and Carol Rusbolt did research on self-respect and found that higher self-respect, lower incidences of going outside the relationship without permission. So basically, like, once someone gets that label, like, you're a cheater, you're a cheating bastard, you're always going to be that, your dad was, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's like, if they buy into that, you don't have another voice or a therapist being like, whoa, let's like unpack that. Then you could really like take that on and lose self-respect, which makes you more likely to then go and do non-relationship behavior again in the future.
But it's very important in the relationship to really take the morality out of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's perfectly okay to be angry, to be hurt, to be disappointed, to even be disgusted for a while. I've had people, hurt spouses, say, I've never felt so much disgust as I feel right now. Understandable, it can happen. But take the morality out of it, because it's not like one person. Yeah, it's not like one person is morally superior to the other. That introduces an imbalance in the relationship that's much harder to recover from. But if both people can say, you know what, this is a horrible, horrible thing that happened, but it's a human error. It's a human mistake. And the fact is, 75 to 80% of the couples that come to see me in my practice have had some form of betrayal.
And we think that it's about 70% in the big population. So it's like, it's the most human.
A lot of people are doing it.
Ever since monogamy has existed, betrayal has existed.
Because it's hard. It's hard to stay committed to the same person over a long period of time. And it's very tempting, even though it's very dysfunctional, it's tempting to avoid this conflict over here and to meet my needs somewhere else, you know, to go somewhere else and figure out how to meet my needs separately.
Yeah, without rocking the boat.
Without rocking the boat. And so that's very human of us. And if we can see it as a human error, and we can see it as something my partner did that was a big mistake, and the fact that they did that means they have some work to do about why they couldn't be transparent, why they avoided conflict, but it doesn't mean that they're morally inferior or morally, you know, bereft.
It's more of a sign of just like the functioning underneath a relationship, the emotional regulation, the attunement, all of that stuff. Kind of, it's more of an outgrowth. You know, it's like Stan Tatkin says, money, sex, mess, kids, time. You know, people, if they're just focusing on the problems of money, sex, mess, we're wasting time. It's just like an affair.
Right.
You know, it's all on the surface. Something else caused this affair, and it's usually like emotional dysregulation or disengagement that is the culprit 9 times out of 10.
So that's why we call the person who had the affair an involved spouse rather than betrayer, cheater.
Yeah, so her partner, involved partner, and affair partner is usually what I go with, but I'm always looking for better words, and I try and use affair in quotes or infidelity in quotes. Since I'm really postmodern, I go with the language my clients use, so a lot of times I end up having to say the word cheating or that, but it doesn't feel comfortable.
No, it doesn't feel comfortable, and I think it's also a barrier. That word itself becomes a barrier to recovery. Yeah. So do we have any questions? I see some comments here. Take the morality out of it. Somebody really likes that. My couples dealing with infidelity always have more under it, and to make it a moral issue also makes someone win, someone lose. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree, Janice. Thank you for that comment. And that is exactly why we do that, is not because somebody didn't make a mistake. We need to be very clear about that. Not because somebody didn't hurt another person. They really, really did. But to wound the people that we care about is actually kind of inevitable. We hope that in the process of 20, 30 years, we wound our partners in small ways and not very big ways. But that also is kind of unrealistic. We end up wounding people we care about for all sorts of reasons, right? And affairs can be all different kinds, by the way. An affair is not automatically a sign of a bad relationship.
No, more relationships than not survive affairs these days. That's just the stats on it.
And you can be having great sex with somebody and that person can still go have an affair. There is a quality of affair that usually comes out of an underlying problem in the primary relationship. That's one kind, right? And we focus a lot on that because that's usually what we're recovering and doing the repair work on. And that's a relationship, Gottman has this 24-step cascade. The bottom line of the cascade is somewhere in the relationship, the primary relationship, there's a period of time when the two partners begin to turn away from each other. One person is reaching for the other one, trying to share something. The other person's too busy, doesn't care about it. There might even be some arguments, disagreements,
and they can't resolve it.
And then they don't ever repair from it. They don't come back. And so they little by little begin to avoid each other. They're turning away from each other. They're making choices not to share with each other. And then at some point, along with turning away from the partner, one or both people begin to trash their partners in their heads.
That's that Carol Rusbolt research that I'm so in love with, is the CL alt, or comparison level for alternative. If you haven't studied this and you work with this kind of relationship stuff, check it out, because it's true. Basically, Carol Rusbolt's one of the only people that had a predictive capacity at all with betrayal. And what it really came down to was when people started comparing and thinking outside the relationship. So not just like, oh, this is a bummer, what my partner's doing is a bummer, but like, what my partner's doing is a bummer and I don't deserve that. And in fact, I bet you I could get something better over here. And then further, like, oh, my coworker at work listens to me in a way that like my partner never does. And then they start even talking to coworker about partner. So then you have the windows and walls shift, and then boom, we're like going down the cascade, or the road to the hotel, as Gottman calls it.
The windows and walls is Shirley Glass's concept. And she says basically there should be a wall around the two of you that keeps you in a bubble, and other people should only have a window into your relationship. But when there's a betrayal going on, that reverses, and then other people have sort of all of the walls open up and they can see in, or they know a lot of information, and the primary partner only has a window into the affair relationship. So there's a kind of reversal of where the walls are and where the windows are. And then, when that starts to happen and the negative comparisons have caught on, it's inevitable that there will be a fork in the road, right? There will be a moment when this person that you admired at work, that you thought would make a much better partner for you, is headed home at the same time that you are, and the two of you meet up in the parking lot and you get talking and you feel like inviting the other person out for a drink, and they say yes. And again, that first invitation may be innocent.
Yeah, or you convince yourself that it is. We're just going out to have a beer.
Right. Yeah. Or there's a whole bunch of people that go out for a happy hour, you go along, and this person that you've sort of been making googly eyes at is there at the happy hours. And then all of a sudden the two of you are deep in this conversation, and you know what? It's very easy. Let me just say this. It's very easy to be the affair partner at that point in time.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to do much. You
this
just have
whole,
to be interesting.
Like, anyone on that moral high horse, like, I'll hold it while you step off, because like I would never, like, you have no idea what you would do, like, in a given context. It is there's no room for moralizing there at all. The people
and really, a lot of affairs are about access and opportunity.
Yes. Exactly. Proximity, access, opportunity.
Exactly. And really about accidental things happening in the beginning, and then it turns into something deliberate. So that first happy hour may be completely accidental. That first conversation may be innocent. And then both people begin to make an effort to reach out to each other. And maybe in the beginning they tell themselves they're just being friends, right? We hear this all the time. I go over to this person's house and we just sit and talk. And up to a point we can believe that, but the level of desire, because this other person is taboo, what you're doing is taboo, that's going to actually increase desire. You're feeling a lot of interest in this person because they're new. Novelty increases desire.
Yeah, your amygdala is like, ooh, that's new and shiny. Like, I don't know about your patterns. Like, your habits are unfamiliar. That's groovy. I'd like to hang out with this.
Exactly. And you've already prepped yourself with all that CL alt. My partner doesn't do this for me. Somebody else is going to be better at this. So you've already prepped yourself So at some point it becomes deliberate.
Yeah, because like that's the thing. If there's positivity in the relationship, there's not negative sentiment override. You can have encounters at work all the time like that, but your brain doesn't go to that spot. It stays in the friend zone because there's not that door
Intimacy.
open to it.
Yeah. You don't want that intimacy with that person because you have it at home. You're dying to go home and tell your partner about this friend that you made at work, rather than telling the friend at work all about your partner and your miserable relationship there. So we're in the affair. We've discovered the affair. The way that we do recovery is atone. That's the first stage. That's what Morgan was talking about earlier, about the involved partner really has to take a back seat to their own needs, which may have been legitimate. They may not have gotten their needs met in the relationship, but the hurt spouse gets front and center for a while until they can kind of stabilize and get to a place where they understand what happened, why it happened, they've gotten all their questions answered, and now they're ready to move to phase two. And phase two is attunement, and attunement is where we begin, if the couple is ready, to start working on resurrecting or rekindling their sexual relationship. Again, some couples can't do it in stage two, right? So attunement may be all about just rebuilding friendship and rebuilding a kind of emotional intimacy. The third stage is attach. And for some couples, sex doesn't resurrect until that third stage.
Yeah, that's really normal and fine. And I would invite everyone to kind of step back from trying to be on a timeline when it comes to, well, in general with everything. Like I hear a lot of dads have this like 6-month idea timeline, like after baby. It's like, you guys ditch the timelines with sex. It's like, we're not.
Where does that come from? What's after baby?
It's got to be like in a GQ article or something somewhere, because I've heard so many men like coming and saying like, well, I heard that it was like 6 months and then it was safe, or like her desire will come back, and it's like, try like 18 years. Like,
that's a little too long. But you know what? It depends on the baby. If your baby is sleeping through the night 3 months after he or she is born, then your partner is going to be ready to go. Yeah. Because they're getting a full night's sleep. They have energy.
This is like, so many people do not realize just like how much like sleep and stress play into this. Like
that's exactly right.
So many people are trying to force, like sweating bullets to force two exhausted bodies with these shot nervous systems to like have this amazing sex, and it's like, good luck, you guys. Like,
and what you're actually doing is teaching your nervous system what lousy sex looks and feels like.
To accommodate, to like force out this uncomfortable 6-minute thing with that is kind of ends in an orgasm that you want to just
6 minutes?
But I hear a lot of people that are doing this sweat bullet thing. Like, yeah, that's where they are. Because if you're ever like forcing yourself into don't have sex, just find another time, or like, shift gears.
Dealing with the pain.
That's a handbrake on your sexual circuitry. It's just not gonna work.
It's gonna come
I hear a lot of, especially in phase two, like a lot of hurt partners are like trying to force themselves, like even if the desire isn't there, to want to have sex again and like show the like involved partner, especially if there's that kind of body comparison to a fair partner, like look, I'm still sexy and I have this thing, and they're trying to force themselves to bring it back online when it like the trust isn't there yet, and the safety is, and the nervous system remembers the betrayal, and it's like we really have to slow it way down in trust recovery work, and like slow the expectations down, and just really take care of the nervous system first.
Yep. Let me see. Question? I wonder if we should take a break at this point. We're about half an hour into it. Why don't we take a break?
Okay.
For about 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. So join us again. And I think after break, what we'll do is talk very specifically about some tips for how to begin to resurrect your sexual relationship after betrayal.
Yeah.
So, see you back in 5 minutes.
Back in 5.
Back in 5.